My name is Karl-Henrik Robert. I'm a professor of sustainable development at Blekinge Institute of Technology. And I'm the founder of the Nära Step, an NGO which is international, represented all over the world. My work is comprised of two main objectives. One is to develop methods and tools with robust scientific methods. So I have PhD students and other students and colleagues working systematically to develop tools for decision makers who want to improve on bottom line business from sustainability reasons. And on the other hand, I help implementing those tools, being an advisor to business and municipalities. I think there is one major challenge that they all encounter, and that is that decisions are typically made from a perspective of the old paradigm. So decision makers today live in a world that has changed very fast and that is continuously changing very fast. But decisions are made from what was true before historical decision making. And that is very typical for all paradigm shifts. Every time mankind has been in a paradigm shift, it has been difficult to be a leader in the early stages of the paradigm shift because you are making decisions that are not any longer relevant. Historically, mankind has previously experienced unsustainability, mainly on islands from which there was no escape. You couldn't move away, like on Easter Island, and they eventually succumbed and had to eat each other first and then died in poverty, in barbarism. But there are also examples of communities on islands where they have lived for ages because they managed the conversation around the fireplace and made decisions that made it possible to hang on. This paradigm shift we're in now is for the first time since the dawn of humanity, some 2 million years ago, we are threatened at the global level. And we now live on an island, a global island from which there is no escape for anyone. So we are for the first time challenged at the global scale with the same demanding challenges that indeed the population on Easter Island. And what we do now will determine if we take the sustainability route and prosper and develop and live happily ever after, or if it will be the end of civilization preceded by barbarism. Those are the two very, very critical possibilities in this bifurcation in time. There are many of them, but let's tackle the problem from a very big position. We will soon be around 9 billion people, maybe on Earth. And we must then envision a future where all of those people get nutritious, healthy food, which puts demands on the food production to not only provide healthy food, but to provide healthy food sustainably. And we don't have any such production systems almost anywhere in the world right now, but we have production systems that are close enough. And we have an increase in an expanding knowledge how to put such production systems in place. And we know that for agronomists and businesses on the food sector in general, this is an El Dorado of opportunities, because that's the first demand. You need food, otherwise you can forget everything else. And to be able to provide food sustainably is a fantastic business idea. Since nobody is there yet, it means that you must step by step move to arrive at sustainable agriculture production. And if you look at DeLaval's vision statement, it is about taking a lead towards sustainable food production and being one of the key players, but helping the others as well in the whole food chain to be sustainable as well. So it's a completely perfect position for DeLaval to be in. The question is if companies need to work with others to eventually manage. There are two answers to this. You can be completely alone doing it and earn more than the others because this is a competitive game and it is never a disadvantage to understand the big system more than your competitors and your suppliers. But You can never be completely sustainable alone. You are all surrounded by dependencies amongst suppliers and clients and other stakeholders. So at the end of the day, if you want to take all the steps to full sustainability, not just a little bit to be on top of the others economically, then you need cooperation. And cooperation is impossible between actors in a supply chain, for instance, unless they have the same definition of what they are supposed to do together. They need boundary conditions that also an engineer would accept as robust for redesign. And if you have a shared mental model of that across a supply chain, the whole supply chain can move towards satisfying customers within sustainability constraints. That's also called PSS, Product Service Systems. This means that the whole supply chain just merge forces to do something together that not either one can do on their own. And in the end of the day, to return to the question, that would be mandatory for sustainability, that we manage to work together effectively. But again, you don't need to wait for that by policy regulations and things. You can still go along doing it on your own and earn more than the others. And that is also a good position to convince them to move in together with you, because success feeds success. Regardless on what arena you're on, if we look at the boundary conditions that you need to merge forces around, what are they? Well, the boundary conditions that are today identified scientifically are generic, the same, regardless what arena you're on. For chemists, people on the food sector, wherever you are. And this is how they go. In the future, when we in our business are sustainable, we do no longer contribute to that anything which was originally mined, fossil fuels or coal or nuclear elements for nuclear reactors, or heavy elements like mercury or lead, whatever. We are not contributing to that. Any of that is increasing in concentration more and more and more. Others are doing it maybe, but not we. Second principle, in the future, when we run our vision and mission statements sustainably, we do no longer contribute to that any chemicals are increasing either. So it's not enough to ensure that mined materials that are brought in as a net input to us in the technosphere have ceased to increase. Also chemicals that are produced in the system, like nitrogen emissions from cows or anything in the production system, which is not necessarily dug out from the Earth's crust. Third principle. In the future, when we are sustainable, we are no longer part of systematically encroaching on fertile land. We are not removing fertile land through too large clear-cutting areas or poor management of fisheries or whatever, where you remove natural areas by physical means. Putting asphalt on more and more larger areas because you require very clumsy transport systems or whatever. There are many examples of that. And the final principle. In the future, when we are sustainable, we are no longer degrading the capacity for people to get their needs met, which means that the decisions we make take people into account, and our decisions deserve trust, so we get trust in the system. And trust is the main glue between people. And decisions must be made such that we deserve trust, and then we can sustain trust. And those principles have not only been scientifically verified theoretically, but we have put them in practice in a growing number of businesses. And it turns out that business people are not stupid. They can deduce those principles and interpret them to their practices. What are our problems today with reference to those? What are possible solutions tomorrow? And what early solutions would be smart to earn money and pave the way for future investments towards those principles? And they have good luck all the time, whereas those who disregard the big systems have bad luck, hit by costs, tax, insurance, high opportunity costs. They don't see opportunities that evolve on more and more sustainability-driven markets, and so forth and so on. Which year are we completely sustainable? To trying to look into the future is very difficult. Let me rephrase the question a bit or answer a bit from the original question by referring back to previous paradigm shifts in history. It turns out that paradigm shifts generally go faster than anybody could foresee. When the time is ripe for a paradigm shift, it occurs like a thunderstorm. It's all over the place. And what you need is a certain maturation stage. We must have decision makers many enough to demonstrate that it pays off to do this better than the others. And then it will spread like a pandemic all around the world. We are not just there yet. So to try to foresee when will most of the decisions made on the planet end up within the constraints I just talked about, of those boundary conditions, is difficult to state. But we are in a hurry to do major decisions in that direction. And I would say that a few decades from now, the world must move fast, big time, in that direction. And then nature's resilience may help us to make it in time. But we are in a hurry to get going with everybody, every organization who could be a role model. We are in a hurry. But please don't ask me to say exactly on the year, because then I would be a flawed scientist. Nobody can look into the future. But we can design it by boundary conditions and then go fast in that direction. And that's the best thing we can do right now.